What's going on, guys? Sorry, a little late to the game. I was trying to just get my thoughts collected so we can deliver a good conversation today. Today we're talking about, let me restart. This is episode number 14 for Whiteboard Wednesday. Still a little out of sorts. Just watching the Brazil soccer game. Really good, interesting soccer game. Too bad for Serbia. 2 goals to get knocked out of the World Cup. Nonetheless, it's been an amazing World Cup. Let me know who you're cheering for. Personally, excited about Colombia playing tomorrow. See what happens. So, looking forward to that game in the morning. However, today we are talking about something that's not talked about very often, and wanted to bring this forward and maybe have a conversation. So definitely let us know what you think about this in the comments. We're talking about negotiating rent. Can you or should you negotiate rent? So again, episode number 14, and we are talking about negotiating rent. So it's a little bit of context for this. Currently, I rent a property. I do not own, I'm not a homeowner. I'm currently a renter here in the Asheville area, and we also manage some properties here in the Asheville area. So got a perspective from both as a landlord management side of things and also as a renter. So it's important to know that one of the things personally that I like about real estate and got me really excited is that everything is always negotiable. And that doesn't mean you're going to get what you ask for or that you're going to get what you think you should get when you go have that conversation or you're negotiating anything at all inside of real estate. But I always think everything's on the table, and if you approach it like that and you're aware of that, I think it's going to allow you as a tenant to get into some properties you might otherwise not have thought of. And maybe if you're a landlord, just keep in mind, just because somebody asks for a rent decrease or an amendment to your lease doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And I want to get into that from 2 components, right? So you can negotiate either the price or you can negotiate the terms. So, what would be an example of negotiating the price? This one's pretty straightforward. Let's say there's a rental, and they're asking $1,100 a month. And you know that because of your budget or what your income is, for whatever reason, the best you could do on this property is, let's say, just $1,000. So if your best case on a property is to pay $1,000 and the current rent is set for $1,100, you have to keep in mind if you're in a position to ask for that. What value as a potential renter do you have to offer the landlord to decrease their rent by $100? So things to consider. You may have really good credit. You might have some skill set you can bring to the table as far as maybe you can do lawn maintenance on the property or do some landscaping or certain things of that nature. Is you're going to have to find where you can add value for something that's going to make up the difference between what you can pay or what you want to pay versus what the price on a rental is. For example, from the management side, we will take into consideration price decreases because sometimes we're not 100% sure exactly what market rent is. If we're managing a property, for instance, in an area of town that we don't have any other rentals, then we might be asking too much. And it's not by intention, it just can be by accident. And if we have a good tenant come in and say in this example, hey, listen, I can pay $1,000, here's my application, here's why, here's my income, and we see that and it matches up and we like the tenant and the application is solid and everything else lines up, a lot of times we're going to say, okay, you know what? Don't pay the $1,100, pay the $1,000, and we'll take a tenant at a lower than advertised rent rate. And it goes in the same way. Currently, where I live, I am paying less than what was the list price on the rental, just because of the conversation I was willing to have with the landlord to just be like, hey, you know, I know you're asking X. That's really not something that makes sense for us at the moment, so we're willing to pay Y, and here are the things I'd ask you to consider before you make your decision. Boom, 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 boom. And they actually ended up coming back and we negotiated a little bit. We ended up meeting in the middle, but there was a conversation. And if you're willing to have that conversation and you have a reason to support whatever side of the equation you're on, then it's a really good opportunity to, maybe get a different price than you were expecting. Now, besides price, the other thing that are things to negotiate are terms. What are examples of terms? Be like the length of the lease. We could have pets. There could be different things as far as like number of occupants. Utilities, lawn care, and etc. So the terms are things that are outside of the price that have to do with the actual rental unit. And so all of these things, again, are negotiable if you have a reason, right? So if you're just pestering somebody to pester them and just see what you can get away with, you might, but that's really not the idea of entering a conversation, in good faith. Maybe you have 5 pets, and the landlord that you're looking to rent from is like, whoa, that is a lot of pets. But you might also have, 5 letters of recommendations from the previous 5 landlords that you've rented properties from, all saying how amazing all your pets are and what amazing condition you always left the house in after you moved out. Then that'd be something that any prospective landlord is more than likely going to look at and take into consideration, and they might weigh whether they allow pets or not, or the amount of pets. Same things with the length of a lease. Most leases are 12 months, but maybe for whatever reason you need a 3-month lease. Have the conversation. Why do you need the 3-month lease? What are you going to do to make up for the short term, etc.? Utilities, number of occupants, the lawn care. All of these things are going to be negotiable. And when you're having those conversations with your landlord or with the prospective tenant, vice versa, just make sure that you take a moment, put yourself in the other person's shoes, and understand why their position is what it is at the beginning of the conversation. Maybe the landlord, for instance, insists that the tenant always is paying their utilities because they've been burned in the past by a tenant taking advantage of water or electric bills and not being considerate of whatever the bill amount is. And so just those are things to keep in mind. I do want to encourage everybody, though, if you are watching this and if you are a landlord, if you are a tenant, allow yourself to engage in conversation with intention of maybe, changing your price or changing one of your terms, paying a little bit more or accepting a little less than what you were expecting at the beginning of looking at the rental. Guys, this is just another episode of Whiteboard Wednesday, episode number 14. If you found this helpful, if you found it interesting, it would really mean the world to us if you take a moment, drop us a comment, give us a thumbs up, share with your friends, etc. Until next Wednesday, take care.